Come va? Siete ancora sveglietti? Perché il prossimo panel si intitola Data Protection e AI. Lo faremo in inglese, parliamo di intelligenza artificiale con alcuni dei grossi player del settore, sia lato aziende che lato politica, che è in questo momento chiamata a occuparsi di una delle tecnologie che sarà più disruptive di tutte quante, cioè l'intelligenza artificiale. Quindi, I would like to call on stage Guido Scorza, che dovrebbe... Guido Scorza, Mario Nobile, non ce l'abbiamo, è vero? Quindi niente Mario Nobile. Peter Fleischer, Brando Benifei e Emma Redmond. E io mi accomodo qui. How are you?
Good.
Okay, let's start from this. Today, a new front opens up. I'm talking about the collective action against OpenAI. And it opens up for all the companies that train their AI models with data collected from the web. The matter of the issue is the legitimacy of the training of these models with this data that is publicly available. And I would like to know your point of view on the issue of the violation of the privacy. I will start with you. Okay, avete due, okay.
Yeah, well, we're building AI models to do all kinds of different things. So when you start with this kind of a question, you have to say, what model are you building and what is it trying to do? So some models can be built with a very small amount of data. We built a model to distinguish cancerous scans from non-cancerous scans in a medical context. You don't actually need a lot of data to do that. You just need a lot of high quality data that has been labeled by experts. But we're also building something, as is my colleague from OpenAI, that are basically language models. And to build a language model, you need a lot of data. In fact, you want to build a language model in all languages around the world, but not just in spoken languages, even in language-like structures, chemistry, mathematics, software coding, music, anything that has a structure that a machine can learn. And to do that, you really do need vast, and I stress the word vast amounts of data. It's not an overstatement to say these models are being trained on as much of the publicly accessible web content as can be reached.
Okay, so you can train a model with a lot of data or just some data. It's still public data, am I right? What is your opinion about that, and how could that infringe the privacy of the people who own that data?
Yeah, I mean, look, we are talking about data that has been made public, so it is publicly accessible data.
Okay.
And some of the data is going to be personal data. But a machine has to learn names. It has to learn the concept of personal data in order to understand human language. So there's no way to exclude it, or you simply could not create the structure of human language. That being said, these models are not trained to identify any individual. They're not trying to say, I know something about this human being. They're just being trained to understand that names and personal data are part of the general corpus of what makes human language work for us.
I would like to know the opinion of Guido Scorza too.
About the same question?
Yes.
Let me say, my idea is that we can't imagine privacy right as an enemy or as an obstacle of the innovation rights. We are speaking about two fundamental rights. We need both. We can't ask people to renounce to one right to have the other. Then we need to find a real balancing position. Then if someone is hoping or is waiting that the Italian Data Protection Authority feel Google or OpenAI as enemies, that's that's incorrect. In my opinion, we are speaking about different stakeholders. Then it's very, very useful to have a panel like this one this afternoon, an occasion to open or to follow with a dialogue that is still opening to find the best possible solution that, in my opinion, is in the privacy-preserving technology. We need technology able to defend ourselves from technology. Artificial intelligence are opening to us some extraordinary opportunities with many, many risks, exactly as happened any time with innovation. We need discuss, and sometimes, of course, we need that the authority plays his role. I mean, vigilate on some possible violation of the rules. But basically, we need to work together. I'm very happy to stay here this afternoon, and I was very happy in the last day we have the occasion to spend some time in some panel like this one, because we need exactly this kind of approach, an open approach to find a solution that permit to us to guarantee to people the most important right, and the most important right is the right not to have to choose between two different fundamental rights. That's the challenge.
That's the challenge. So you're saying you're not enemies. That's what you're saying, basically.
I don't like imagine industry as an enemy of the supervisor authority. From my side, they are stakeholder with different interest than the one that I have to guarantee. We need to compose this apparent antagonism, and I'm sure that at the end we will be able, also thanks to regulators. Here we have one of them. Then I imagine that if the regulator, I'm sure that if the regulator is able, in our case in Europe, we try to do exactly this, to define the rules of the play. Is after that it's easier for all of us inside the play to find the best result.
As the authority, and I would like to ask the same question to you, Brando, what are the key areas in which you will focus most when tackling these issues, so that we can all understand both?
I'm sorry, but okay.
As the authority, what are the key questions that you are asked to your?
If we're speaking about artificial intelligence, and in particular, if we are speaking about a generative model, as Peter said, they need a very huge amount of data, included, of course, personal data. Then, in my opinion, we need two basic problems to face. The first one is transparency. Privacy right means at the end that people must have a control, a real control on their personal data. Then the most important thing here is transparency. I need to know that someone, Google for instance, or OpenAI, here are processing my personal data, in which way and for which purposes. And after that, I need to have the right to say to Google or to say to OpenAI, stop, I don't like that you will use or you use my personal data for this kind of business activity. If we will find a compromise solution about this main point, probably we can find the final solution. And also the AI Act did us some very interesting, give us some very interesting opportunities in this field.
I would like to ask the same question to Brando Benifei.
Yes, I think the scene has been set already, especially by Guido Scorza now, but I will enlarge a little the the perspective, because working on the AI Act, I've been the negotiator of the European Parliament of this first legislation on artificial intelligence. That is the first in the world to horizontally regulate AI. We have been focusing on one end on how we use personal data, how it is protected, how this fits with the existing legislation, the General Data Protection Regulation of the EU. But also, I can mention other aspects that are connected. For example, the issue of copyrighted material, so the protection of human creativity, how we avoid the total use, without compensation. So the use of copyrighted material to train AI without any compensation for the actual creators of this material. This is a complex topic, but we have found in the AI Act a form of balance that will need to be implemented so that we do not see abuse of human-made content without rebalancing the negotiating power of the creators. On the other hand, I can say that if you look at what the AI Act does, it looks into how data is used, on the governance of the data. For example, one use case that is regulated among the so-called high-risk use cases is the use in the medical context, where the governance of the data is very important, is sensitive data linked to the health situation of a person. But also, I think of the issue of quality and appropriateness of data that we check to avoid algorithmic discrimination, to fight algorithmic biases. For example, those that make some systems today to learn that when they select some curriculum to choose someone to hire, they have learned to exclude women or people of not white from certain jobs. So the aspect of data has a lot of different perspectives when looking at what the AI Act does, not just the classic issue of the personal data and how we manage it, but in general, how we manage the usage of data, how we manage the copyrighted material, and also how we fight discrimination that AI can learn through data, can learn to discriminate, and we need to use standards to contrast this kind of discriminatory algorithm that otherwise can become like that, and we have no ways to stop that if we do not have rules that will go in a different direction.
As a political actor, could you summarize to our audience what the different sensibilities are in the European Parliament about this?
Well, the AI Act was approved. Was approved with a very large majority. It's a big compromise of different points of view, but clearly there were more sensitivities in some political areas. For example, on strengthening the prohibition of some more dangerous uses, again linked to data. I didn't mention, for example, that the Parliament has changed the original text, for example, in prohibiting the use of AI for emotional recognition in workplaces and in study places. And this is something that we think was important to avoid the damage to the privacy and dignity of workers and students. So the sensitivity on prohibiting some societal control uses has been one of the topics where we had to debate more, because there were different sensitivities. How much we can use biometric cameras, with how much freedom to use them by the state, to control people. This was one topic, for example. And the other one, I conclude on this other aspect, is which kind of rules to put for the most powerful models. So what kind of regulation we do for the frontier of the technology. In the end, we made some rules, but with some flexibility. So implementation and how the European Commission and the regulators at national level will implement rules will be very important. Also for transparency objectives, like making AI-generated content recognizable, to avoid, for example, the abuse of deepfakes in terms of disinformation or to pursue criminal objectives.
Thank you. So we are talking about, policies that are coming from the European Parliament, but I would like to ask you, also organizations like OpenAI, I suppose, are debating the privacy challenges that you encounter developing in the development of AI. Now, machine learning algorithms are very complicated. People like me, I come from a different background. I do not really understand how it works. But I feel, like many people do, that we have no control over what you know about our data. How are your organizations, like OpenAI, but I would like to know from Peter too, addressing these challenges?
Yeah, so I'm going to go back to when we first started, and we were unknown prior to the 30th of November 2022, frankly. It's really important for us, and we continue every day to recognize where we started and where we came from. And that is that idea of being a research lab. And as part of being a research lab, and for me, I get to work with the most amazing researchers every day. And this idea that, like any researcher, how they will log their reports, log their findings, etc., is something that's so innately part of what we do. We don't know any different, because prior to November 2022, that's what we did as a research lab from the beginning. And I think that's really important, because that allows for us to be transparent in terms of the work that we do. And we have published so many blogs and publications talking about the risks, as well as obviously the benefits and the use cases, which I can talk for a long time about. But it is important to highlight that we do make that transparent. And that is extremely important. And also to ensure that that is clear to users, so that they understand what the issues and what the concerns can be, as well as the usability and the societal benefits from this. So I think that's one of the ways to kind of, at least internally, to get over challenges, is that idea of transparency and being open. It is difficult. There are so many regulations out there. We mentioned GDPR, we mentioned the AI Act, but it is much broader than that. And so what's really important is globally trying to find a way for interoperability, that all of these different codes across the world, this legislation, this guidance, there needs to be a way that there's, that they interoperate, so to speak. And part of that is obviously continuing those discussions you mentioned already, in terms of continuing that line of communication all the time, because this is a tool for humanity. Humanity does very well when they talk and they interact and they engage and they talk about these issues. So there's some of the challenges that are out there on the regulatory field, and trying to harmonize those and interoperate those, but also ensuring that you are transparent about how you go about matters. So they're just a few examples of how we think about it.
Okay. Peter, would you like to add something? Do you feel the same way?
Sure. but I'll take a maybe even a little broader perspective, be a little bit more philosophical. This is a revolution that is about the most profound thing I can imagine. It's about building intelligence itself. This will be the most profound invention in human history. And it's not done yet. It's a process of invention that will take a while. It's surpassed human abilities in many areas already. It will reach general human intelligence in a reasonably near future. And it doesn't stop there. It will continue, continue, continue. So what do I conclude from that? I conclude that AI applications will be able to do all kinds of things that are currently simply not possible. And we as a society, we as a company, we as regulators, we as everyone, humanity, will have to decide of all those things that AI can do, how many of them do we want to be allowed to do? You mentioned discrimination and bias with regards to very familiar categories like gender and race. But we'll have entirely new categories of discrimination enabled by AI. For example, AI can categorize a person according to personality types. Should an employer be allowed to consider that? AI can detect all kinds of health status issues that are currently unknowable. AI can very accurately identify sexual orientation in people from very little input. Well, with powerful tools like that, it will upend the balance that we have reached as a society in all kinds of areas. And I think the biggest challenge that we're all going to have are not just details about what data did you do to train a model, although they're important, or details about copyright, although that's a legitimate legal issue, an economic issue. But the bigger issue is going to be, what do we want this stuff to be allowed to do? It is going to be a wave of things hitting us very, very, very fast. And we will have, as companies, the obligation to make our own ethical decisions. Regulators will have entirely new fields to worry and think about that nobody has thought about. And those are just from the good and responsible actors. There's also a world of bad actors out there who might not give a shit what we think is the right thing to do in the world. And we're already seeing that with these waves of misinformation and disinformation campaigns trying to affect, for example, Western elections. It's just the beginning of that.
How does your society, and then Emma, the same question after this, navigate the complex landscape of international data protection laws while maintaining user trust?
Yeah, for me, very briefly. Well, look, every time you're an internationally active organization, you always have to comply with laws around the world. There's nothing new about that. It's always been that way. I've been in the field for 40 years. We were dealing with every data protection law around the world, 40 years ago. So that part is not new. I'll give you what my little formula is for that. If you think you're going to build a new product according to 50 different flavors and categories, to 50 different laws around the world, you will fail. If you build one to a standard that will meet the highest common denominator, that will be accepted globally, you'll succeed. And so if you look at our services, in almost all cases, we have one version of a Google service that is used around the world. There are a few minor little changes that we have to do for some particular laws in some places around the world, but 99% of everything is built to one global standard. And there's no other way to do it. You'd go absolutely crazy if you tried to do it any other way.
Agree. And also, that idea of trying to implement something so specific across it's just not possible. And so that's what I keep going back to, this idea that it's important to track what's happening, but talk about what's happening and make sure that that is aligned in terms of that interoperability that I mentioned. But also I think, trying to do that through your through your ways of working within your organization, because it is so broad. You have to find those areas that are common to what you're doing day to day. And always kind of aiming for that higher standard is always the best way to do that. And it gets the best out of your product, it gets the best out of your people, and you're constantly striving for that higher standard all the time. So I would say 100% it's your tracking and your talking, as I like to say, but also it's your ways of working day to day and how you're kind of dealing with all of those elements across the world, and all of those elements within legislation and how that applies in the day-to-day as well.
Great. While this revolution happens, while we see it happening in front of our eyes, do you and then Brando have some suggestions to the users, for the users that are starting now to, see and use these tools? Because we are talking about these tools like everyone uses them, but it's not like that. My parents probably they're still ignorant about the matter.
Well, the objective of the action of the European Union with this AI Act, for example, on which I work directly, is to build more trust on the diffusion, the spreading of these instruments in our daily life. We want to give a clear message. The institutions in Europe want to protect our democratic freedoms, our societal values, our welfare systems, our labor laws from the disruptive impact of the technologies, trying to get the best out of it, but also making people feel that they can trust, that we will not let them in a situation where as consumers, as workers, as small businesses, as citizens, they are without protection and without support. I say this because especially looking at Italy, where we are now, compared also to other countries in Europe, we have not very good data about the usage of new technologies for a lot of activities, having less productivity, less added value generated by the use of technologies, even very simple things, not even AI. Let's think even of e-commerce for businesses. So we need to bridge this gap, and we hope that this action of the Union will show that we can use AI in a way that is also true to our social model as European Union. It's true also that we will need to focus. A new mandate of the European institutions just started. We need to focus on having also a competitive model for the European Union on AI. Investment, research, common action at European level, also from the financial markets point of view. I mean, it's a long story. But the message I want to give is use AI, experiment with it. We will work so that in Europe we can pave the way for more safe AI, for a global discourse, working together with the main actors that develop AI, so that the whole world think, for example, on generative AI and the protection against misinformation. We can build a global framework that will not be exactly the same everywhere, but it can also have interoperability, as it was said.
Guido Scorza, do you have something to say to the user and to their experience when approaching these new tools?
Let me say that as Peter mentioned, probably artificial intelligence is the most revolutionary invention in the history of humanity, but just for a second, we can think about artificial intelligence as a scooter in a very chaotic city like Rome. I come from Rome. It could be useful. It could be dangerous. The difference between the first and the second scenario, it's in how much users knows the dynamics of the scooters. If I'm able, if I'm educating to use the scooter could be very, very useful. If not, could be very, very dangerous. Here, for now, we are investing more in training algorithms, knowing humans, than in educating humans, knowing algorithms. That's something that we need to reverse. We need starting to invest more in living with artificial intelligence, because artificial intelligence is here with us, to remain with us in many different forms for many, many years. Then we need to acquire the ability to use it, limiting the risk, knowing that it's impossible to eliminate the risk. The risk is something that it's simply the other phase of the same coin with innovation. It's always the same. We can't hope to eliminate the risk, but we can't limiting the risk, and we can do it simply with education. That's something that we need to know. The last message from my side, and I'm very happy to share with you, with Brando, with us. Here, the risk, the worst scenario is that we leave the floor to technology as a regulator, as regulators, because Stefano Rodotà, the first president of the Data Protection Authority in Italy, said very, very often that if regulation don't arrive in time, technology becomes itself a form of regulation and shapes the society like the regulation. Yeah, the most important thing is to avoid the risk that the technocracy take the place of the democracy. But fortunately, in Europe, we acted in time. Then I hope that if we will be able to apply this kind of new role, the artificial intelligence will be simply a new tool to empower citizens in a democratic society.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Grazie mille. Vi chiedo un applauso per i nostri ospiti. Thank you. Grazie.